හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Wednesday the 17th of April 2024. Travel easy. Department of Immigration and Emigration launches e-visa service portal for online visa applications. Honored. Final rites of Sarvodaya founder Dr. A.T. Aryaratna to be held with full state honours. Stabbed in the back. Catholic Bishops' Conference deceived by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, says the Cardinal. Hushed. Non-disclosure agreements prevent the government from disclosing sensitive information discussed in ISB holder group meeting, says State Minister of Finance. Opposition legislators urge more transparency in external debt restructuring.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Adrisinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story tonight, Finance State Minister Shehan Singh has stated that due to the price-sensitive nature of the negotiations and market regulations, discussions with the International Sovereign Bondholders Group and its advisors are being held under non-disclosure agreements. This restricts the government from sharing information with the public. The minister issued a statement today saying that recent confidential discussions with the bondholders group were constructive and further discussions will be held after consulting with the IMF staff, aiming to reach a consensus before the IMF board considers the second review of the fund program.
In a statement yesterday, the Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilisation and National Policies mentioned that the Sri Lankan government had discussions with 9 members of the ad hoc group of bondholders steering committee about its international sovereign bonds over the past 3 weeks, known as the restricted period. Despite constructive discussions, the parties did not agree on restructuring terms. Today, State Minister of Finance Shehan Singh issued a statement saying that the discussions are being conducted under non-disclosure agreements, which prevents the government from sharing sensitive information that could affect the stakeholders of the discussion. He mentioned that the ad hoc group of bondholders representing holders controlling more than 50% of the bonds is a key dialogue partner for Sri Lanka. The minister stated that both sides have successfully resolved a number of technical issues during the discussions, leading to significant progress. He expressed hope that Sri Lanka would continue discussions with the bondholders, aiming to reach a consensus after further consultation with the IMF staff regarding the compatibility of the latest proposals with program parameters. The minister also assured that authorities continue to engage in all debt restructuring negotiations in good faith, adhering to principles of equitable treatment among creditors and maintaining maximum transparency within the norms of such negotiations.
Can you feel it? New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
Dulux. Now, meanwhile, responding to the statement issued by the Minister of Finance pertaining to the first round of talks with the bondholders, Parliamentarian of the Samagi Janabalawaya, Dr. Harish Silva, calls for more transparency on the government's engagements with the bondholders without politicizing the process, while noting his expectation that the government will arrive at a deal with the bondholders sooner than later. The SJB MP is of the view that the government should not agree on a half-baked deal.
What seems to have happened is it looks as if the government is in principal agreement with an MLB, which is a macro-linked bond, meaning that they are willing to agree to structuring these new series of bonds that will be linked directly to the performance of the economy. But suffice it to say that it is better not to agree to a half-baked deal or better not to agree to a bad deal and walking away to discuss it another day. And I hope that the government will be able to reach an agreement sooner than later. Reading through the document, it appears that the restructure will go on till about 2040, which means you are trying to bind not just the next government, but governments after that till 2040. And this government has only a 6-month window at the most to be in office. So therefore, that is why we continue to propose to the government, we urge the government to make this process more transparent and ensure that there is acceptance across the aisle. Because let us not make this exercise political. Let's look at it as a national responsibility. Because between now and 2040, all of these groups that I just mentioned perhaps may be in office. And everybody will be responsible and will be held accountable and will have to honor the agreement that Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe is about to enter into. So isn't it better to get everyone's agreement? Yes, we agree that Lazards and Clifford Chance are working on our behalf, are representing our interests, but there has to be some real involvement of our people. I don't see that. I see Shehan and others talking about the IMF thing in DC. I see Sagala talking about the bond restructure. But we don't see any real involvement of government in any of this. Where is the government's position? What do they stand for? Where is it? What is the objective?
Now, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, who also commented on the progress of the government's discussions with the international bondholders, alleges that the inability to achieve complete understanding is a direct result of the government's unwillingness to adopt necessary policy changes. He made this claim while attending the latest edition of the Sakwala program in Ambalanthota.
The 158th iteration of the Sakwala program was held at the Al Akbar Muslim College in Ambalanthota under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, who donated a smart classroom to the school. Addressing the gathering, the opposition leader commented on the recent developments of the government's discussions with its international bondholders.
A
research institution has created a novel policy instrument. The institute's representatives have presented their findings to Sri Lanka's international bondholders. This instrument allows the interest rates of the restructured bonds to be reduced, subject to certain conditions. So, what are these conditions? The first is that there must be good governance within the country. The second is that the country's anti-corruption program must be strengthened and implemented within a reasonable time frame. These conditions are in the IMF deal as well. So why is the government hesitant to accept these terms? Is it because the government's policy is to allow corruption and not to prevent it? Or is it because the government wants to line their pockets before this year's elections? I implore the government not to hurt the country's innocent people by making theft a regular practice.
Now, the 15 Sri Lankan fishermen who were sentenced to 7 years rigorous imprisonment in Myanmar were granted a general amnesty. The arrest was made in December last year by the authorities of Myanmar for illegally crossing the country's maritime boundaries. The release, meanwhile, came in line with the first day of the traditional Burmese New Year, during which the military government released more than 3,000 prisoners. According to foreign media, the 15 Sri Lankans in question were also among the released prisoners. Sri Lanka, however, previously petitioned the Myanmar government for clemency on behalf of the detained Sri Lankan fishermen. Archbishop of Colombo, Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, says that former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa deceived both the Catholic Bishops' Conference and him by failing to launch a comprehensive investigation into the Easter Sunday attacks. Addressing a media briefing to announce the commemoration of the 5th anniversary of the Easter Sunday attacks, which will be taking place on the 21st of April, the Cardinal said that steps will be taken to declare the victims as heroes of faith.
We are now going to declare these people who died in the churches as heroes of faith. We will be taking the first step towards that by collecting all the signatures of our Catholics in Sri Lanka, especially in the Archdiocese of Colombo. These signatures will be presented to the Holy See, to the Holy Father, for recognition of these people as heroes of faith. Up to now, those in power after the Easter attack and during the Easter attack as well as after the Easter attack have have not done anything substantial in order to discover what was behind these Easter attacks. We have been making requests, pleas, we have been writing letters to them on and off, but we have not even sometimes received an acknowledgement from them, and we are sad that this attitude has been taken by our political leaders. So we have lost our trust in the system, and therefore we are now going to appeal to the Lord for justice for our people. And this year's program will be worked out at St. Anthony's Church, Kochikade, and at Katuwapitiya St. Sebastian's Church, in those surroundings, in a much more spiritual manner, with prayers and with commemoration ceremonies. We do not intend to turn it into a political event because we don't have any trust in politicians up to now.
All of a sudden, the former president said that the attack was perpetrated by an external entity. We want to know who that is. Without knowing that, we cannot say that this matter is over. We need an investigation free of political interference. So far, the Samagijana Balawege in a letter has informed us that they will conduct investigations. The JVP-led Group 2 promised that they would conduct an investigation. However, we are yet to receive it in writing. They requested an appointment from me. We were deceived once. Former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa gave a written promise to both the Catholic Bishops' Conference and me that he would launch a comprehensive investigation into this. However, that investigation did not take place and I was deceived.
Now, as the 5th anniversary of 2019's Easter Sunday massacre draw near, the National People's Power took to stage to claim that an NPP government will guarantee justice for the victims.
No one has inquired into the conspiracy behind this attack. An investigation to reveal whether this attack was perpetrated to grab political power has yet to be conducted. Abu Hind was a name that was revealed before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the Easter Sunday attacks. Abu Hind was above Zaharan Hashim and his team. No investigation into him has been conducted so far. He is an extremely important person of interest to this investigation. Initially, it was said that Sarah Jasmine died along with Zaharan's group in the suicide bomb explosion. Later, there was a rumor circulating that she had fled to India. Those areas of the investigation are very vague. None of the investigations have revealed that information. Those areas need to be investigated. An independent investigation is essential to clear up those doubts.
Another debate on the Easter Sunday attacks is scheduled in the Parliament. Another debate on the Easter Sunday attacks is scheduled in Parliament. This will be the fourth debate on the Easter Sunday attacks. What justice was delivered to the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks through the previous debates? Justice will not be delivered in the fourth debate. What is essential is the execution of legal actions by the Attorney General. However, that is yet to be taken.
A special investigation commission will be set up under the government led by the National People's Power. Based on the evidence gathered by the commission, steps will be taken to file criminal charges against those who are yet to be charged.
Now, in other political news, the acting chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Nimal Siripala De Silva, says that the party must not hang on to old principles and that it must adopt modern thinking to move forward. He made those remarks while attending the 108th Remembrance Day of the late Sirimao Bandaranayake held at the BMICH earlier today. Meanwhile, also attending the occasion, former President Maithripala Sirisena, who was temporarily restrained from acting as the chairman of the party, urged all SLFPers to unite despite the ongoing disputes to move forward.
Today marks the 108th birth anniversary of the late Sirima Ratwattebdayes Bandaranayake, also known as Sirimavo Bandaranayake, the world's first female Prime Minister and its first female opposition leader. An event was held today in memory of the late Sirimavo Bandaranayake at the BMICH in Colombo, garnering the participation of several high-ranking members of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Despite the ongoing turmoil within the party, the event saw the attendance of former President Maithripala Sirisena, Acting General Secretary of the SLFP Dushmantha Mitrapala, Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa PC, and the Acting Chairman of the SLFP Nimal Siripala De Silva.
No one could secure the presidency while winning over the people's mandate since 1997 without prioritizing the SLFP. There may have been attempts to weaken the SLFP. but all of us must get together and protect the party.
Sirimao Bandaranayake could not be bribed to secure positions of power within the party. She put a lot of thought into appointing party organizers. That is how she protected the party. That is why she thinks that she was more of a man. We need that sort of masculine leadership for the progress of this party. She also never removed party positions arbitrarily. She protected democracy within the party. I was the one who took the suspension letter of her sons, Anura Bandaranayake, to get her signature. I took Anura Bandaranayake's letter of suspension to be signed by her. She took a moment to herself and then signed the letter of suspension. She never tried to retaliate against her son's suspension by suspending us. She was never an authoritarian and she never tried to amend the party constitution to accumulate more power to herself. On the matter of leftist politics, I must say that the left doesn't exist anymore anywhere in the world. It is just a placard now. We should not be over-attached to our principles. We must think differently.
In 1977, she lost power. From 77 to 94, she executed her duties in the opposition without going after government privileges and betraying the party.
The crisis which ensued after Sirimao Bandaranayake's community rights were abolished was much bigger than the SLFP's crisis today. When all her sons and daughters left her alone and created new parties, we were there for her. Looking at these idols of the late SWRD Bandaranayake and Sirimao Bandaranayake, can you in good conscience join other political parties? SWRD Bandaranayake himself ousted an extremely corrupt minister from his cabinet. I urge everyone to leave aside their differences and join together for the journey ahead.
The remains of the founder of the Sarvodaya Movement, late Dr. A.T. Ariyaratne, was brought to the Sarvodaya headquarters in Moratuwa this evening. The final rites of the socially engaged Buddhist leader will be performed with full state honours, reminiscing the significant service rendered by the prominent figure to the country.
Dr. A.T. Ariyaratne, the founder and president emeritus of Sri Lanka's largest non-government movement, the Sarvodaya Shramadana Movement, passed away last evening while receiving treatment at a private hospital in Colombo. For more than 63 years, Sarvodaya, which seeks no poverty and no affluence in Sri Lanka through community-based efforts and volunteerism, continues its service to the people and Sri Lanka even today. As a result of this contribution, Dr. Ariyaratne received many national and international awards in recognition of his commitment to his nation and its people. This evening, the remains of Dr. Ariyaratne were brought to the Sarvodaya headquarters in Moratuwa. Many people, including the clergy, other religious representatives and politicians, visited the premises to pay their final respects. Following a meeting between the President, the Prime Minister and the officials of the Sarvodaya Movement, Secretary to the Ministry of Home Affairs, Public Administration and Provincial Councils, Pradeep Yasaratne, was instructed to perform the final rites of the late Dr. Ariyaratne with full state honours. The remains of Dr. Ariyaratne will lie at the headquarters of Sarvodaya Shramadana in the municipality of Moratuwa until noon of the 20th of April, before being carried by a funeral procession to Independence Square. Final religious rites will then be held, followed by cremation at 4 p.m.
Meanwhile, the final rites of the late UNP parliamentarian Palitha Thevara Peruma will take place this Friday. Thevara Peruma's remains were brought to his residence in Yatadalawatte in Matugama this evening for the public to pay their final respects. An on-site inspection of the estate in question was also conducted by the Matugama Additional Magistrate this morning. According to reports, Thevara Peruma's death was caused by fatal injuries inflicted during an electrocution. He was a former chairman of the Matugama Pradesha Sabha and was also a member of the Western Provincial Council. He served as a member of the parliament from the Kalutara district through the UNP ticket during the period from 2010 to 2020. He also served as the Deputy Minister of Social Empowerment, Deputy Minister of Sustainable Development, Wildlife and Regional Development, and Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs, Environment Development and Cultural Affairs during the tenure of former President Maithripala Sirisena. Thevara Peruma stood out among the other lawmakers, particularly due to his service rendered to the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to sources, Thevara Peruma will be laid to rest in a tomb that he constructed himself. Welcome back now. Foreign visitors anticipating to visit Sri Lanka can apply for visa online through the new e-visa service introduced by the Department of Immigration and Immigration earlier today. The new e-visa service claims to address several shortcomings of the old electronic travel authorization system and make the process of issuing visas smooth and efficient. With the transition from the electronic travel authorization system to the new e-visa scheme, all eligible nationalities planning to enter Sri Lanka, whether by sea or air, for the purpose of tourism, business or transit, will have to complete an e-visa application before their entry to Sri Lanka. On the 27th of November 2023, Extraordinary Gazette number 2360/24 was published with details on the new visa issuing methodology, relevant fees, requirements to be met and the period of stay in Sri Lanka. Controller General of Immigration and Immigration Harish Silva highlighted the operational infeasibility of the electronic travel authorization system introduced in 2012, which was regarded as one of the best visa-exempt entry requirements in the world during the time. Hence, the new and improved e-visa system has been introduced to address the shortcomings of the ETA method. The Controller General of Immigration and Immigration went on to claim that the new system will ensure national security and address other related concerns, including the large number of documents to be submitted to secure resident visas. He further stated that applications can be tendered in 5 languages at the moment and that it could be improved to include other languages on demand. However, while most nationalities are allowed to enter Sri Lanka through the new process, visitors from Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, the Ivory Coast, Syria and North Korea will have to apply for visa through the Sri Lankan Embassy or the Department of Immigration and Immigration. Those nationals will have to provide documents including a police clearance report, a certificate from a Sri Lankan guarantor, an affidavit from a Sri Lankan Justice of Peace and accommodation information. Meanwhile, nationals of Taiwan would need to select People's Republic of China, Special Administrative Region of China as their nationality while applying for the e-visa. Applicants can furnish their applications through www.srilankanevisa.lk and also use the same website to access more information on the new service. Now, the Colombo Exchange ended slightly higher today, aided by gains in financial and consumer discretionary stocks. The all-share index settled 0.33% higher at 11,830.94, reversing course after falling for 2 straight sessions, while the S&P Sri Lanka 22 closed green 0.6% at 3,491.32 points. LLC Finance and Palm Garden Hotels were the top gainers on the all-share index, surging 3.4% and 17.1% respectively. Trading volume on the CSE all-share index fell to 86.40 million shares from 95.40 million shares in the previous session. The equity market's turnover increased to 2.01 billion rupees from 1.48 billion rupees in the previous session. Up next is Udishan Jonas from Capital Alliance Limited with some thoughts on Sri Lanka's economic outlook.
At today's Treasury bill auction, we saw the 3-month Treasury bill rates fall by 7 basis points to 10.03% and the 12-month Treasury bill rates fall by 4 basis points to 10.23%. The average prime lending rates increased by 7 basis points over the last week to 10.6%. Sri Lankan private sector credit averaged between 50 to 100 billion rupees of lending every month, which has fallen to almost negative levels in January and February, reporting only about 7 billion rupees. As a result, the central bank might be more on an easing stance in the coming months. However, despite the central bank purchasing $715 million of dollar purchases, we haven't seen that resulting in the rupee liquidity increasing as a result of the central bank trimming down on their treasury bill holdings and the seasonal withdrawals by the general public remaining relatively high. The external debt restructuring, the restricted talks between the Sri Lankan government and the external creditors took place during the last week of March, and it has been inconclusive in terms of a decision, with 2 out of the 4 clauses has not been agreed by the government of Sri Lanka, which means that push back the negotiations by roughly about 1 to 2 months, which means that progress on the external debt restructuring will be pushed back by at least a month's time.
Now let's take a look at some corporate news in brief.
Asriel Private Limited signed on as diamond sponsor for the 21st edition of the Culinary Art Food Expo 2024, infamous as South Asia's largest food expo. The expo, dubbed Cafe 2024, promises a menu of events that will cater to enthusiasts and professionals alike and showcases the latest in gastronomic technology. In addition, the 3-day event features masterclasses, workshops and tasting sessions designed to educate, inspire and entertain a diverse audience of gourmands, hospitality experts and food entrepreneurs. Empowering customers through education, Ceylon Cards announced a partnership with the British Council. Ceylon Cards introduced exclusive 0% installment plans for 12 months, specifically for IELTS and other educational courses provided by the British Council.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.